All right, welcome back into Clay and Buck. We got Steve Hilton with us. You all know him from his time at Fox News, but he's running for governor of California, which is a job that needs somebody much more competent in the role than what they currently have. That is for sure. He is in L.A. right now. Steve, thanks for being with us. Are you out on the street? I know you've seen a lot, just trying to give everybody a picture of where you are. So you're out on the streets in L.A. Bring us up to what you have seen up to this point, what the reality has been on the ground.
So, I've just popped indoors so it's not so loud. The thing is very clear. It is a total breakdown of law and order and civilized life and civilization. It is just absolutely shocking to see what's been going on here. The smashed up businesses, most of them, by the way, owned by working class Latinos whose lives are now being completely wrecked. They're not going to get insurance. No one cares about that. Newsom doesn't care. Karen Bass doesn't care. All they care about is pandering to their far left activists. So you've got the sort of total, lack of care about people's lives being destroyed. But in a way, the most shocking thing, and I put out a video of this just last night. I was walking around after they'd cleared the main riot scene and dispersed the crowd somewhat, and you saw the aftermath. Every single surface covered in vile, disgusting graffiti. And there's something so shocking about the scale of it. Literally everywhere you look. F ICE, F Trump. By the way, F Israel a lot. So, what's that got to do with anything that's going on here? That tells you the kind of people we're dealing with here. And it's just this collapse of standards of civilized behavior. You know perfectly well that not a single person who did this will be held accountable by California authorities, will be prosecuted. All of these things are crimes. I've spoken to DAs and sheriffs. It's very clear that what we've seen happening here, they're felonies. Is anyone going to be prosecuted or held accountable? No, not by California authorities. And so this is why we need to turn this around. This is a real moment, I think, for everyone in California to realize we've got to go in a different direction. We cannot have this weakness and pandering to political activists instead of standing up for the decent, law-abiding majority.
Steve, I appreciate you coming on, and certainly if I were in California, you'd have my vote next year. But when you see so many people running around waving flags of foreign countries while they are burning down Waymo vehicles, or when they are raining down Molotov cocktails onto police vehicles, what does it say not only about the United States and California, but also you've come from England, where this is a global struggle for the legitimacy, it seems to me, of Western civilization.
Yes.
What you see here is happening in London. It's happening in Paris. It's happening in Rome. There is, in many ways, I think, an attack on the entirety of Western civilization and values. Do you sense that people in California feel that?
Yes, but they don't even know it. This is the thing, because it's now the product of years and years, decades really, of creeping indoctrination in this ideology. I mean, whatever you want to call it, wokeism. I did a whole sort of piece on it on my Fox show. We probably discussed it, Clay. Originating
for sure.
100 years ago in the Frankfurt School in Germany, the Marxist philosophers, an all-out war on the institutions of a civilized Western society, the family, faith, all of those things. So this has been part of a long burning plan, and I think because it's now so commonplace throughout, started obviously in academia, but now throughout the public school system and so on, they're not even aware that this is what they're spouting and that these values are what they're upholding, even if you can call them values. I mean, it's a very serious situation, but the good news is that we're confronting it finally, that we're standing up against it here in America. That's not happening in England. It's not happening anywhere else. And so that is really encouraging. And just as you see these appalling scenes, and I completely agree that it's so shocking. I put that in one of my videos yesterday. I was walking around in the daytime in the protest zone, Mexican flags everywhere, other Latin American flags flying. The best I could find was one young guy on the roof of his car waving. It was 50-50. It was the Mexican flag on one side, the Stars and Stripes on the other. That was the best I could find. I taped a little interview with him. I'll be putting that later today. Nice kid, but completely unaware of the sort of background to this leftist indoctrination. But as I say, look at what's happening to fight back against it. Look at the success of movements, the Turning Point, for example, and the youth vote in the last election. We're not letting this go unchallenged.
Steve, it's been amazing and kind of horrifying at the same time to see some of what these Democrat leaders, from the governor, Gavin Newsom, down to Mayor Bass of Los Angeles and other officials as well. Their responses to this range from the outrageous to the entirely incoherent. You have on the one hand, they'll say things like, don't be violent. That plays into Trump's hands. I don't know. I think they should be opposed to political violence and assaults on officers and destruction of property, regardless of what that will do to the poll numbers. And then beyond that, it's completely unclear what their objection is, or rather, I should say, I think it is clear that their objection is not to anything other than the enforcement of American immigration laws. There's no claim that federal authorities have done something that is not lawful. They just are saying, whether it's the mayor, the governor, or others, we don't like the enforcement of federal law.
No, and you know what was completely right, and the thing that really illustrated that was the almost like revoltingly predictable way that when the first news broke of these enforcement actions, one by one, up popped on social media the pandering statements from everybody in charge in Los Angeles. And I use that word advisedly. Of course, they're not really in charge. But one after another, up popped the statement saying, at this time, we're thinking of our community, all this blather, pandering to the activist left. And it was the mayor, which is totally predictable, and it was the governor, which was totally predictable. But shockingly and disturbingly, it was also the police chief and the DA. Every single person in authority in California putting out pandering statements instead of saying very clearly, if you break the law, you will be prosecuted, and we will hold you accountable, and we will not tolerate lawlessness and disorder. Nobody said anything like that. It was all pandering to the left. And that tells you the rot that's gone on for so long in California, and that's what we need to change. And the majority of people understand now what's really going on here, that you have people who are, as I say, not really in charge, but the people at the top who have no interest in protecting the interests of the majority of regular working people who are just being let down all the time by this far left ideology.
Steve, this is not standing alone either. January 31st, I think it took several weeks, you'll know better than me, to put out the fires that were burning all over Los Angeles. I'm not an expert in arson, but thankfully, lighting things on fire intentionally in Los Angeles seems like a bad idea, given the history that we just went through. But also, to me, there's a connecting thread here, and it is of Mayor Karen Bass and also Governor Gavin Newsom being unable to make rational, reasonable decisions for the people of Los Angeles and the people of California. Buck and I have talked about this a lot. Buck lived through it in New York City. Things got so bad that people finally said, we need law and order, we need Rudy Giuliani, Mayor Bloomberg. They fixed New York City in many ways, and they had to do it from an outsider perspective. Do you think that's what you could bring, and are things getting bad enough where Californians say, we can't keep doing the same one-party decision-making?
Yes, that is 100% the central argument. We cannot go on like this. And you can look at it's all of a piece. The fires, of course, and there's a similar pattern here, right? Which is that the extremist policies caused the problem. So with the fires, it was the environmental extremism that meant that you had this tinderbox situation. They didn't clear the brush. They didn't do anything. You got residents were fined for protecting their own property by clearing the brush. So they have the extremist policies that caused the problem, and then their response to the problem is totally incompetent, and then they just lash around blaming someone else. Similar pattern here. It was their extremist policies that caused this problem. Remember, it's the sanctuary state policies that caused this whole situation, because there's no cooperation with federal immigration enforcement and law enforcement, which means that these kinds of enforcement actions are necessary. You don't see this in other states where you've got cooperation between the feds and state and local authorities. So they caused the problem in the first place. Their response is completely incompetent and inadequate, and then they blame someone else, in this case, obviously Trump. But there's another point I want to make, which is about the pattern. Just a couple of weekends ago in Los Angeles, you saw very similar scenes to what we've just witnessed this past few days on a smaller scale. You had an illegal party, a roof party that got out of control in a warehouse building, hundreds of people spilling out into the local community, marauding around, smashing up businesses, vandalism everywhere, literally setting cars on fire. They commandeered a police car, jumping all over it, graffitiing the police car. What did the LAPD do? Nothing, literally nothing. They stood back and just watched while all this happened. There was not a single arrest. That's what's the problem here. You have people who will not enforce the law and uphold standards of civilized behavior, which is the first responsibility of people in government. And that message I'm drumming home loud and clear. And I think there really will be change in California in 2026, because we cannot go on like this.
Steve, real quick before we go, is it dying down, or is there a concern here that this could continue or maybe even worsen?
I think it is, and I think the president is dying down, and that's good to see. And I think it's the direct result of the president's tough response, because I mean, everywhere you go is the National Guard holding the line, and so I think that has clearly made a difference. And last night was better than the weekend. And, let's hope tonight is better. It's early morning here still, so there's nothing going on particularly. But I think that it looks like things are getting more under control. And, of course, that's something we welcome. But it's exactly, I think, thanks to the tough federal response, which, of course, all the politicians here, that's their fault. I mean, for goodness sake, the governor of California spending most of his time yesterday, posting on X, anti-Trump trolling things, and filing lawsuits instead of protecting.
It's madness. Yeah, he has neither read nor understood the Constitution, Steve. But that's not news. We're aware of that one. Steve Hilton, what is your site for the governor's race?
SteveHiltonforGovernor.com. FOR. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com.
Well, we encourage everybody in California who wants things to change to go to SteveHiltonforCalifornia.com. Keep up the good work, and for governor, and stay safe out there.
Fantastic. Great to be with you guys. Thanks.
That's Steve Hilton. He's hopefully going to be the next governor of California, because God knows they need a lot of help. Tunnel to Towers Foundation makes a lasting difference in real lives, like the lives of the Clark family. U.S. Air Force Sergeant Jesse Clark's military service came to an end after a chemical exposure caused a large tumor to form in his brain. As a result, he's paralyzed on the left side of his body, legally blind, prone to memory loss, and in a wheelchair for the remainder of his life. Friends like you helped Tunnel to Towers build this hero a new smart home to help him live a more independent life. So many more families like the Clarks could need our help right now. Since Tunnel to Towers founding after 9/11, we can't forget, not when so many have sacrificed so much. America's heroes need you to help join us and say thank you in a lasting and meaningful way, and that's why we donate, and you can donate with us as well with just $11 a month. That's all we're asking for at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.